Hello, friends, and anyone else who may be watching this. I wanted to give an update on my mother. She passed away on Thursday, and so I've lost the most special person in my life. We had a very special and unique relationship, and obviously, if you lose your mother, it's a huge thing, probably one of the biggest things that could ever happen to you. Your mother brought you into this world, so if you lose that, it will obviously affect you in a big way. I did kind of learn in facing my own mortality that just there are harsh realities in life, and sometimes things can happen in unexpected ways. It was very difficult to watch her pass. I was there, spent the day with her. She wasn't very responsive, and she was clearly in huge discomfort. So, yeah, it was very difficult to watch and be there with her. It was also kind of difficult to take that there were lots of medical mistakes along the way, inexcusable negligence, I believe, that contributed to her deterioration. And this was made worse by the opioids she was given for the agonizing pain she was feeling. And that's because opioids are known to actually drive cancer proliferation at quite a pace. So she deteriorated even more rapidly. And to compound things, the opioids that they give you usually have sugar as a carrier, so it's like they have sucrose. So we desperately need better options to opioids because it's just stupid giving cancer patients opioids for pain. You need alternatives that won't make the cancer so much worse. It kind of gives you a double hit with that sucrose. And it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary aggravation. It's just destructive. As I've said before, in terms of this whole thing, there was never any cancer before in my family before I was diagnosed. So, yeah, I'm left with somewhat of a bitter taste about this whole experience. But I need to let go of that negative energy because it's not helpful, and it's too late now to do anything. In terms of behaviors, diets, and the Care Oncology Clinic drugs that we had, and everything else we wanted to try, sometimes it's just too late. And there are also these confounding factors, or these antagonistic factors, like the opioids, and so many other drugs have sugars in them, and it's the same if you're treating epilepsy with a ketogenic diet and you're still on anti-epileptic drugs. Often the drugs are anti-ketogenic because they have maize starch and sugars and just all sorts of stuff in them that is not necessary, and these metals and things, So yeah, it's just the whole system, and the steroids and all this stuff just raises blood sugars, and it's a difficult terrain to overcome, let's say. Let's try and state it that way. And of course, it's also the patient's choice. So you can advocate doing all these things. But at the end of the day, it's the patient's choice, and the patient might be in so much pain that they might get, and also a late stage cancer patient can have cancer cachexia, where they have to be really careful to eat enough, because at that stage the cancer is taking up fuel from the muscle tissue and just wherever it can. So timing is important, and choosing the right approaches. But like I said, it's the patient's choice, so you can't push anything on the patient. And you have to prioritize quality of life sometimes, and that's the sad truth. I advocate for simply having the options, and there are many reasons why a patient may not want to do some things, especially if they're elderly and frail. And in that state where they have absolutely zero appetite and the cancer is just eating them up. So I've been on a roller coaster. I've had a roller coaster of emotions about this. And you feel like, thankfully I had the opportunity to say goodbye to her and say what I had to say. And she seemed to respond just before she passed, when I said that I loved her and I kissed her on the forehead. And she had a single tear that went down her face just before I kissed her on the forehead and she passed. So in a way that was quite comforting. And this, just everything makes me, from now on, makes me want to continue to be, because I was striving for that before, but even more so, it makes me want to be the man that she would want me to be, and to achieve my goals, and to help as many people as I can, because that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so yesterday I met with Dr. Nel Sayed at the Division of Brain Sciences at Imperial College, and we talked about my career aspirations and what I would like to do in future in terms of a PhD and future work looking at the ketogenic diet. She showed me ketogenic diet for brain cancer. She showed me a lot of the data that she'd accumulated recently from recent studies and studies over the years that she's done. And the data is very encouraging, and this is from patient-derived brain tumours, so they're not immortalized cell lines. So you can tell a lot from that. She also had data from patients who, prior to surgery for their brain tumours, went on fasted and went on a ketogenic diet. And there are interesting changes that happen from when they have. So really, okay, what it is this is data from patients who had a primary brain tumor, and then they had surgery, and then they had a recurrence, and at some stage they went on a ketogenic diet, or I don't know. I think there's some sort of before and after data. I'm not thinking clearly, but um, there is one that was, I think, pre and post surgery, and the tumor was definitely easier to remove, and also appeared to have an interesting kind of profile that was compared to patients with similar tumors who there's just things you can see which are different, but I can't explain because it's quite complicated, the epigenetic changes that occur, and there are ways of monitoring that. And then there was something to do with a first a primary occurrence, and then and then yeah a primary a primary occurrence, and then a recurrence, and then what happens there. So that was a second kind of thing to look at. But yeah, it was very interesting what I saw. And we also discussed how there are all these other ketogenic diet studies that are very poorly implemented. So they might be, and this is what critics of the ketogenic diet for cancer love to use, just these flawed studies. And we mentioned how it's kind of amazing how these kind of studies are even able to be published, because it's not that we disagree with the conclusions, it's just that well, we do, but we disagree because if you look at the methodology and if you look at the study design, it's just a flawed setup because it's designed to fail in a way. They're using often, if it's rodent studies, they might be using hydrogenated oils, or it's actually not a ketogenic diet, it's a high fat and high carb diet. So not a high carb, low fat diet. And it's just poor ingredients. And the studies looking at studies using other ways of implementing a ketogenic diet were just there were big holes in them. So that's why I am a lot more enthusiastic about the way that they're doing this at Imperial, because they've become real experts in this area, and that's their main focus: nutrient deprivation and the ketogenic diet. And in future, we will be looking at ketone salts, actually having ketone salts that can be used by these rodents, they're not used, but can be, what would the best word be? Can be tested on these rodents as the cancer models, and then yeah, because sometimes if it's a formulation like an exogenous ketone formulation, it might be too acidic and it might be toxic to the rodents. But if you have these like these ketone salts that you can have, which is just BHB, beta hydroxybutyrate is not too acidic. Like I think acetoacetate is more acidic, so it kind of has that toxic kind of effect, but BHB wouldn't. It's more moderate in a way. It's still a bit acidic, but more moderate. It's not really a problem. So yeah, interesting stuff, and I will be getting my thesis published, if I continue to keep it at this high standard, I'm nearly finished, worked damn hard on it, so I really hope it does get published. Just need to continue to work. And from just everything, from this whole experience, I want to celebrate my mother's life, because that's what she would have wanted. She's an incredibly positive person, and even right till the end, she just just had this incredible energy about her, positive energy, and everyone who knew her saw that. And everything that I am today is from her. I had a very unique, special relationship with my mother. And I learned two very important things just about life. And I have had that reminder over the years. Just one is that when people say they're killing time, it's kind of like you're killing yourself. So time is precious. You don't kill time, you savor it. And I've learned more recently that even in the space of just a few days, it's nearly a week now since my mum passed, and I needed time to gather my thoughts about it and everything. I learned that grief is a natural process, and you just have to let it happen. I'll have times where I feel okay, then I might be reminded by something that she did or said, or just how she was, and it might make me just feel miserable or cry, but that's okay, and I just need to be philosophical about it. And I feel like in some way, in some form or another, she's still with me. And I'm going to, because my sleep has been affected, and I'm very aware of my own health, which ironically has been pretty good lately. I'm going to make sure my sleep is improved, because it's been disrupted the last few days, understandably. So I'm finally going to get an Oura ring, which can monitor my sleep more. My sleep quality can be monitored effectively with that. I was using other sleep trackers, but I don't think they were very reliable. So the Oura ring, I've heard so many good things about it, so I'm finally going to get one of those. And I'm also just improving things that I need to improve to achieve the goals that I want to achieve, so that I can do some research which is impactful, makes a real difference, and involves the ketogenic diet. I say the ketogenic diet, but I don't believe that there is such a thing as the ketogenic diet. There are ketogenic diets, and there are some good and bad ones, and there are personalized ketogenic diets, and those distinctions I feel is very important, because I'm on a personalized ketogenic diet, and it's very different to other ketogenic diets, which I don't think are as helpful. And I feel like it's a huge thing, because some people have ketogenic diets where they have hydrogenated oils. This is the worst thing you can do. It's worse than having sugar seriously. Just damages cell membranes and causes havoc. There have been calls to actually ban these oils, which is interesting because I've always been actually against banning things, but I think you should put on the bottle not safe for human consumption, because they're not. Might be fine to put in your car, or use as some hybrid fuel, but you don't ingest that. So yeah, that's one thing. There's also the whole thing about dairy, just high-fat grass-fed dairy, high-fat unpasteurized. High-fat dairy can have anti-cancer compounds like CLA and a good omega-3 to 6 ratio, and as a good source of butyric acid. But in terms of micronutrients, it doesn't really offer much. So usually I don't have dairy, but if I do, I have unpasteurized goat's cheese, and a very very small amount, because I do know that it can drive IGF-1, and so I would have it like once every couple of months or something like that. Very small amount, because I try to optimize my micronutrient profile. So I try to have real nutrient density in my diet, which is why I have mainly organ meats and bone marrow. And bone marrow is a fantastic source of vitamin C. There's this idea that vitamin C from animal sources is actually superior to plant. There's this whole debate about vitamin C and carnivorous diets. However, I've found that I think vitamin C can be useful, so I try to get it from animal sources. I also have liver, sweetbreads. Also, I'm trying to get eyeballs, because there's this compound called zeaxanthin, which you'd normally only get from, or there's this idea that you only get it from certain vegetables and some fruits. However, there's it is concentrated in the eyes, so it makes sense if you eat eyes that you can get that too. When I talk about this kind of stuff, people think I'm just doing it like a novelty, or like it's just this freaky thing, but it's not. It's ancestral eating, so it's just a different way of doing things. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent because I just don't know what to say. Sometimes I don't know how to feel, how to think, but they say time helps. I know I'll never get over this, but I am going to continue to be the kind of person that my mum wanted me to be. And that's how I'm going to honour her, with my research and with my character, with who I am. I'm going to be the best man that I can be.